Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Major 4 is over. Next stop, the World Championship, but so many big storylines coming out of this one. 4 majors this year, 4 different champions. So much reaction to the Subliners victory yesterday, certainly from the OpTic guys, especially given they now know what the World Championship bracket is going to be in a few weeks' time. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. So much to dive into today. First of all though, because after the COD World Championship in Dallas, there is of course the Esports World Cup in Saudi Arabia for Modern Warfare 3. There's also, however, in week 1, Warzone, and that's basically going on right about now. So the Warzone guys are getting out there already for the Esports World Cups. This is going to be going on, of course, across all the games and stuff over several weeks to come. Let's talk, though, about what happened at Major 4, because, wow, the conclusion to this one certainly sent some shockwaves. Los Angeles Guerrillas, top 3 in the end. What a performance, to be fair, from Guerrillas to make it this far, to qualify for the World Championship. Of course, they're going to be prepping hard already, I'm sure, for OpTic Texas in that first round. We'll see the full bracket in a second. Shout out to all these boys, of course, right, because not just the main 4, but also the other boys that have come on board to help out the team from the coaching perspective, in addition to head coach and Vios, right, and look, they've delivered the result when it mattered at the end of the season, but of course they couldn't win the event. FaZe took them down, and then Subliners took them down in the losers bracket before in the eventual grand finals. It's Subliners that win. Again, we're going to talk a bit more about FaZe later on today, what continues to potentially go wrong with this team, what other things need to be said on this roster when it comes down to these grand final results, because let's be real, Subliners results in grand finals have been mega over the last couple of years. Whenever they make a finals, they usually tend to win, and of course Kismet turned up massively, the Bulldog is back, Skyz has won so many grand finals in a row, and look, it depends, you can argue what brought it out of Kiz this weekend, you know, the no fan stuff, whatever, but fact of the matter is the confidence was back there, clearly the preparation for a series like this was back there, and we see what Subliners are still capable of. And let's be honest, right, if they go back to back for the second year in a row, like, you've really got to have a conversation as to, at least in terms of a core, what has been some of the best cores in the history of the CDL, because you look at FaZe, yes, they've won basically every single year apart from Vanguard, but how much do they actually win when they do? You know, usually they'll win an event, they'll look good in the first event, they'll then win an event in pretty dominant fashion, they'll then look dominant in the qualifiers and then fall short of the next event, and you know, it's been a consistent cycle for FaZe over the last couple of years. Whereas for New York, you know, last year they won 3 events, this year they've won 1. If they were to, you know, win the World Championship, which difficult to say who's the favourites for it. Of course, FaZe are going to be the #1 seed, but Subliners have just beaten them in grand finals and made an incredible losers bracket run. So you've really got to give New York just so much credit for what they've achieved here as a team. And sure, they've made the change, Priestahh to Simp, and you know, I think they've been proved right really in that change now. Sure, had they not have won this event, and they might not win the World Championship, but you know, look, it's difficult to win champs, especially back-to-back anyway. No one really has actually ever done it, at least from an organisational perspective, and therefore any tournament victory really this season, especially with Simp starting to play well, would arguably put them in the conversation of, at least, you know, given what Priestahh did this year, the struggles they had in Boston, I think in hindsight, Subliners will be pretty vindicated by this weekend, although things really will depend on exactly how competitive they are at champs. Drazah, of course, beat LAG 3-0 and said, look, it's Sunday, we're back, we're here, and then, of course, later in the day, they lost, right, as he said, played terrible, onto the World Championship. Now, look, not Drazah's best series at all, but, you know, it doesn't really seem to matter whether it's Draz, whether it's Slasher, whether it's Arcetes, whoever's there as the 4th, there is a very consistent trend in terms of how the team performs in these big moments, especially given the fact that with Draz, they've arguably looked at times this season the most dominant they ever have in the CDL. Even looking back to Cold War, some of the stuff they were doing this season, the amount of sweeps they were getting was reminiscent of their Cold War season, but in that year, they could win the grand finals. This year, seemingly not the case so far. Again, of course, Simp not happy about it. GG, Subliners lost 4-2, of course, in the best of 7, and this now becomes true. Simp has 2 wins, Kiz now has 5 championship wins, 1 world champion, HyDra has the same, Skyz now has 2 more than that, and I'm pretty sure like every single one of these that Skyz has been in the grand finals of, he's basically won at the first time of asking. HyDra as well joins a relatively exclusive list of players that have won 100 series in the CDL for one organization. Of course, the FaZe boys are up top, CleanX for Ultra, Dashy for OpTic, then Insight as well, and then of course HyDra with now 100 on the New York Subliners by winning that grand finals. These were just quickly the numbers. If you guys didn't see the end of yesterday's video, thought I'd mention it again just real quick, just to show you guys who was turning up, who wasn't really delivering. And sure, aBeZy, Drazah especially, didn't have his best series by the numbers. Of course, the damage was still there, and it was an absolute grueler. Like, I don't think FaZe played especially poorly. I do just think that New York were the stronger team in the grand finals, but, you know, we've said that story just so many times. So lots of credit deserving for New York, but of course, at the end of the tournament, the question was, can they do this again come the World Championship? What does the bracket look like? Which other teams are going to be able to put up a fight? Because if you go from start to finish, the start of the season, Toronto won. They got worse. They then got better again last major. Looked like they were going to do better again here. Didn't happen. They come top 4 in the end. So Ultra, their trajectory is not where they would like it to be. And as we've said for the last several years, the team that wins Major 4 is almost always very competitive in the World Championship. Major 4, Major 5, I just mean the final event really of the entire season. They are usually very good at champs. Even back in Cold War, when Minnesota Rocker won that event, you know, it wasn't exactly a fluke, but, you know, when they beat Rocker, they beat Toronto 5-4 in the grand finals, that crazy reverse sweep. Of course, FaZe were out early in that one. Even then, Rocker still made it deep at the World Championship a couple of weekends later. So it's almost always going to happen that New York being competitive here will be competitive at champs. The question is how competitive. Scrappy says, look, typical Paco, fair play, like, you know, what a victory for them. And even Sib after the victory says, happy birthday, Ernest, because it's his birthday today, Scrappy. So not the best birthday present from his teammates, or whatever you want to say, with the way that tournament concluded, but it's not like Scrappy played well either in that series. But yeah, Dante Sib, he's loving life. Here he is. I'm a champion. He's back at it again. You know, Sib's been in lots of drama over the last few weeks, really, especially the 04 stuff with Seattle Surge and all that that's going on. And look, Sib was taking a lot of flack for his performances, for the way that he was delivering at the start of the season. He's turned it around massively lately, and I think it was nice to see ReeaL as well say, can everyone give Sib his flowers? I think there's no real denial that at the start of the season, Sib was not where he wanted to be, but every time I've heard him speak about his play, how he's trying to improve, XYZ factors, he's kind of impressed me with his mindset. But as ReeaL says, and this is why I think the coaching staff of New York is still the strongest in the league. ReeaL, Sender, that's the setup. They have the same thing last year. And look, these guys will not get complacent. Like, they know how to do this. They've done it before. They know how to win a final event of the season and then go back to back. And as he says, sure, Sib, you can have your flowers today, maybe tomorrow. But after that, he's locked in for scrims and the World Championship, right? Because, you know, mindset is key. And this is the point. As Sender says, this means nothing. We're going to win champs again. So this is, I wouldn't say it's even scary. I think you know what you're going to get. But there's only one team in the entire league that I have faith to win this event and, like, absolutely not even let their foot off the gas, but, like, push their foot down further, if you know what I'm saying. Like, I think New York will go even harder as a result of this win than easier. Whether that's enough to win champs, I don't know. Like, are they going to be able to replicate this performance again? How good are the other teams going to be? But I just think from, like, a coaching and mindset perspective, there is a very good reason why the Subliners have been on top consistently for the last couple of years of the CDL and are back there again. I think there is something to be learned there from some of the other teams. And, well, one of them could be OpTic Texas, right? Of course, their setup is interesting. They've got, obviously, Karma's there as the head coach. They've got JP. They've got Kenny, of course, doing a sound job, but wasn't good enough this tournament. At the end of the day, the big favourites, they didn't make it. I mean, going into the tournament, Subliners were slightly more favoured to win it than OpTic were, just because OpTic were starting in losers round 1, but of course Subliners were likely to be joining them there as well, which they did after losing to FaZe in the first round. And as Dashy says, insane run. Congrats to New York, because they made the run all the way through the losers bracket. It is worth commending Subliners for that. The fact that they started losers round 1, won every single game, beating Minnesota Rocker, which of course Rocker will be, well, if you're Rocker, are you frustrated or are you not too dissatisfied? I guess you're still annoyed that you didn't make the World Championship, and you're probably extra annoyed maybe because the team that had to beat you was actually the team that won the entire thing. But still, if they'd have done better in the qualifiers, they would have been in a different boat there. But Dashy giving his congratulations to New York, 4 majors, 4 different major victors, and in the same way that OpTic won the most recent major, wasn't the case here. Can they bounce back? That is the big question. And this is what Kenny seems to imply, right? You know, the classic Ada kid. This is where the fun begins, and what he's, I guess, implying is this is the final push, right? This is what they always talk about, the final couple of weeks before the World Championship. Championship, this is when the guys are going to absolutely lock in beyond belief to make sure, they can do the best they can. The issue is for OpTic, they are starting this final push, if you want to call it that, from a lower position, as in they've not been playing the best COD. Can they get up to the level to win the World Championship? Well, we know the potential is there. We've seen it before. But they're not playing a good enough level of Call of Duty right now to win it if they played the World Championship today. So, if Subliners are going to go just as hard, if not harder, than they were before this tournament, FaZe most certainly will be. Toronto most certainly will be, given the way that both of those two respective teams lost the tournament. OpTic have to absolutely be locked, I think, if they want to be competitive when the World Championship comes around. These then were the final standings. So as we theorized yesterday, with Ultra losing and FaZe at least making finals, that guaranteed FaZe the #1 seed again. They've done it again. Congratulations, FaZe. People call them the #1 seed merchants, and maybe there's something to that, and whatever you want to say on the FaZe in the grand final stuff, the reality is again that they have so many points, they win so many series, and yet they just don't win the number of tournaments that you would expect to correlate with that. But it's a story that we've heard kind of as old as time at this point in the CDL era, at least over the last 3 or so seasons. But yeah, FaZe #1, Ultra #2, OpTic New York. To be fair, this is actually before the grand finals, but at this point it was locked in after Los Angeles Gullers were gone. New York actually weren't far off overtaking OpTic here at the end, but these were the final standings. So FaZe at 560, Ultra at 495, OpTic at 415, New York at 395. So yeah, and actually in the end, New York have one more series win in terms of the map win-loss and stuff than OpTic actually do, but OpTic just about more points based on the poor result for Subliners way back at Major 1 at the start of the season. And to be fair, the first major of the year is often a little bit fluky. If you look at New York's season last year, they won the first major, fell off, and then came back to win the final 2 events. This year they got slammed at the first major, but look, it is always the first major, and then they came back and have won the second to last event, and we'll see what happens with the actual main story. But yeah, it's very clear it was a top 4 league, and that has been exemplified emphatically based on the results of this weekend's, with all 4 of these guys getting an event victory and of course still being the top 4 in the standings. Surge, Gorillas, Thieves, Heretics, those are your other 4 teams that made it in the end. It was actually relatively comfortable. 170 was pretty much the number you needed in the end. So Legion at 165, that wasn't enough, and yeah, 185 was, I guess, the number that any of these other guys needed to actually get any further than that. This therefore is going to be your bracket. So FaZe play Heretics round 1, and I think it is an exciting bracket for a number of these teams. The interesting thing, of course, is that with Subliners finishing as the 4th seed, they, if they win against Surge, which you'd think they would, and if FaZe beat Heretics, which you'd think that they would, then we get a FaZe versus New York rematch in winners round 2. So look, as expected, we have the top 4 seeds all in their kind of pride of place, I suppose, across the bracket. So if they all win, then the second round is going to be absolutely spectacular. Of course, second round gets you to top 6 guarantees. Third round gets you to top 3, and then of course it's the grand finals after that. So I guess my question is for you guys to close out the video, of these 4 games, which is the most likely to potentially yield an upset? Because FaZe Heretics just feels unlikely, although because there's now effectively 3 weeks really until Champs for these teams to prepare for this one specific game, you can come up with some, counter strats. Maybe you know what maps they're going to play. Maybe you come up with some ideas. And so there's always the possibility, I think. Ultra versus Thieves, I definitely have Ultra winning. New York, I can't look past. FaZe is difficult too. And OpTic should beat Gorillas, of course. But Gorillas just came top 3, and OpTic just came top 12. So I think of all the matches that I'm looking for, that is probably the one that I'm saying, okay, wow, that could be very telling. And we're not going to have any idea how OpTic and Gorillas respectively are progressing until we get to that World Championship starting on July the 18th. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.